Dead Sea sect was consumed with the idea that the end was near, that human history would cease with the imminent appearance of a messianic age. First, however, there would be a great time of trial involving a terrible conflict between the forces of good and evil. One of the most fascinating of the Dead Sea Scrolls, also among the original discovery of 1947, describes this final conflict in what reads like a cross between a cinematic biblical epic and the Star Wars saga. It's known in Hebrew as Milchemet B'nei Or B'vnei Choshech, or the war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness, or simply the War Scroll. And it gives us much valuable insight on the way in which at least some people of that day conceived of the realm of final things, otherwise known as eschatology. The scroll essentially presents a sectarian version of Armageddon, detailing a battle against the children of Gog and Magog, the wicked nations described in the book of Ezekiel, chapters 38 and 39. Because the sect believed in complete predestination, there was no way this war could be averted. One could only prepare for it. The victorious outcome for the sons of light was also inevitable. The course of this future conflict is to last some 40 years, and both men and angels are to participate in it. In the first stage of the war, lasting 6 years, the congregation as a whole will engage the wicked Kittim in battle. In the second stage, they will fight against the Kittim of Egypt, and in the third and final stage, lasting 29 years, they will do battle with the kings of the north. The text declares, Vahia et tzara al kol am pedut el, uvechol tzarot ma lo niheta kemoha mechusha ad tuma lifdut olamim. There is certainly a parallel here with the New Testament book of Revelation, which can now be viewed as a product of the world of ancient Judaism. Common to both is the idea that the prince of darkness called Belial will be annihilated in the end, followed by a golden age in which the divine reign will be established on the earth. The scroll begins as follows. Reshit mishloach yad b'nei or, להחל בגורל בני חושך, בחיל בליעל, ועמהם בעזר מרשיעי ברית, בני לוי ובני יהודה, ובני בנימין, גולת המדבר. ילחמו בם לכל גידודיהם, בשוב גולת בני אור, ממדבר העמים, לחנות במדבר ירושלים. The scroll's narrator seems to be speaking of other adherents and allies who are scattered abroad in what he calls the desert of the nations. Josephus says this of the Essenes. They have no one certain city, but many of them dwell in every city. And if any of their sect come from other places, what they have lies open for them, just as if it were their own. And they go into such as they never knew before, as if they had been ever so long acquainted with them. The War Scroll declares that these scattered sectarians will return to the desert or wilderness of Jerusalem, which may well refer not to the physical city of Jerusalem, but rather to the desert site of Qumran itself. In other words, a small multitude of sectarians will gather together at Qumran from all the places of their dispersion to take their stand against the powers of darkness and their earthly agents, the Kittim. The scroll continues, ואחר המלחמה יעלו משם ובא מלך הקיתים במצרים. ובקיצו יצא בחמה גדולה להילחם במלאכי הצפון, ואפו להשמיד ולהכרית את קרן ישראל. ויהי העת ישועה לעם אל, וקץ מממשל לכל אנשי גורלו, וקלט עולמים לכל גורל בליעל. The question we have to ask is, how did the sect itself understand these prophecies of the future? The members of the sect believed that up until that moment, the world had been under the dominion of forces of great evil. But all wickedness is to be vanquished in the coming Armageddon-like conflict between good and evil. The conflict is waged on two co-equal planes, in the physical dimension and in the spiritual dimension. The dominion of the sons of light is to be established on both of these planes, and the rule of the sons of darkness, expressed through the mysterious Kittim, is to be obliterated. ושרה ממשלת קיטים להכניע רשעה לאין שארית, ופלטה לא תהיה לכל בני חושך. Doubtless the sect identified the Kittim as Rome, which at that time had conquered Egypt. It also seems that when a great revolt broke out among the Jews against Rome, lasting from 66 to 70 of the Common Era, the sect concluded that the end of days had arrived and that their prophecies were being fulfilled. It appears that they actually joined the Zealots in their struggle against Rome, retreating down the western shore of the Dead Sea until they arrived at a mighty rock fortress jutting out of the Judean desert, Masada. Consequently, it was not only radical zealots who met their celebrated and grisly doom on the top of the plateau of Masada by taking their own lives, it was also the remnant of the religious community at Qumran. The evidence for this was uncovered by the famed Israeli archaeologist Yigael Yadin, who not only procured many of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but also organized in the 1960s the excavation of Masada, the last stand of the Zealots. Among the rocks and broken potsherds atop the rock, he discovered a most curious find, a small portion of a scroll text, fragments of which were also found at Qumran. It is known as the Song of Sabbath Sacrifices. While we can't look at this as definite proof that the sect in its final days joined the revolt against Rome, it does appear that this is how it met its ultimate doom. The predestined dominion that they expected was not to come to pass. Instead, most were probably either killed or scattered during the Roman march toward Jerusalem, and the remnant who survived the onslaught were destined to perish among the 960 souls who carried out one of the most horrific mass suicides in history. There is still much debate about whether the Qumran sectarians were really pacifist Essenes, as often theorized. Josephus referred to the Essenes as ministers of peace and wrote, "They contemn the miseries of life and are above pain by the generosity of their mind. And as for death, if it will be for their glory, they esteem it better than living always. And indeed, our war with the Romans gave abundant evidence what great souls they had in their trials, wherein, although they were tortured and distorted, burnt and torn to pieces, and went through all kinds of instruments of torment, that they might be forced either to blaspheme their legislator or to eat what was forbidden them. Yet could they not be made to do either of them, no, nor once to flatter their tormentors or to shed a tear. But they smiled in their very pains and laughed those to scorn who inflicted the torments upon them, and resigned up their souls with great alacrity, as expecting to receive them again." Philo Judaeus, the great Jewish philosopher of the ancient world, went as far as to say that the Essenes were pacifists. As for darts, javelins, daggers, or the helmet, breastplate, or shield, you could not find a single manufacturer of them, nor in general any person making weapons or engines or plying any industry concerned with war. Nevertheless, the tone of the scrolls themselves is distinctly militant. Why indeed would a group of pacifists write the war scroll? According to the scroll, a series of horrific battles, 7 in number, were expected to transpire at the very end of days. The outcome, congruent with divine will, had long been prophesied. V'shlosha yit'azru, chayil bli ya'al lemoshav goral or. 3 battles were to be won by the sons of light, while a mysterious troop of enemies, obliquely identified as the evil battalions of the evil one, were to be victorious in 3 other engagements. Losses were to be expected, as well as the demoralization of many. Extremity, however, is not the time for surrender. It is a time to tap into something greater than oneself. It is a time to energize the divine might within. ודגלי הבנים יהיו לחמס לבב, וגבורת אל מאמצת לבב בני אור. The 7th battle shall, according to the prophecy, be waged and won by the Eternal. ובגורל השביעי יד אל הגדולה מכניעת בליעל, וכל מלאכי ממשלתו, וכל אנשי גורלו. Elsewhere, we are told that a whole host of angels will descend from on high and grant final victory to the sons of light, referred to also as the elect. כי תילחם בה מן השמיים, כי רוב קדושים לך בשמיים, וצבאות מלאכים בזבול קדושך, להלל שמך, ולפקוד צבאות בחיריך, לאלפיהם ולרבוב אותם יחד עם קדושיך ועם מלאכיך לרשות יד במלחמה, להכניע קמי ארץ בריב משפטיך ועם בחירי שמיים נוצחים. Several of these angels are mentioned in another striking passage from the War Scroll. ועל כל מגני המגדלות יכתבו על הראשון מיכאל, על השני גבריאל, על השלישי סריאל, על הרביעי רפאל, מיכאל וגבריאל לימין, וסריאל ורפאל לשמאל. Clearly, the protection of the angels in time of battle was greatly sought after by the desert community of Qumran. For the righteous, the sons of light, the physical victory culminates in a new age, a new dimension, a new world. ובני צדק יאירו לכל קצבת תבל, הלוך ואור, עד תום כל מועדי חושך. ובמועד אל יאיר רום גודלו לכל קצה עולמים, לשלום וברכה, כבוד ושמחה, ואורך ימים לכל בני אור. Hercule Poirot here, the world's greatest detective. A good textual sleuth will notice one stylistic aspect that is seldom seen. The bulk of the text deals not with blood and gore and the din of battle, but with the spiritual exertion of the self. While a series of fierce battles are predicted, the battles themselves are not actually described. Instead, the bulk of the document is a vivid description of liturgical praise. At the heart, there is no fighting at all, but a participation in a great liturgical ceremony with trumpets, standards, and shining armor. In the final analysis, the battle is won by praise, by personal purity, by a noble state of mind. What we find in the War Scroll is a sequence of specific spiritual directions engraved upon a series of trumpets, the trumpets of summons and the trumpets of alarm. By and large, the words written on the trumpets simply describe the desert compatriots as the called of God, the princes of God, the army of God, summoned by God to the council of holiness, the peace of God in the camps of the saints. It is the language of religious ritual, not the language of death and destruction. The words represent the fruit of inner exertion, determination, and endurance. The militancy of the scrolls, in general, is always cast against the militancy of this inner struggle. For the sons of light, anticipating the conflict ahead, the prophecy declares, "Uveshalosh ushloshim shnei hamilchama hanotrot, יהיו אנשי השם, קריאי המועד לכל ראשי אבות העדה, בוחרים להם אנשי מלחמה לכל ארצות הגויים, מכל שבטי ישראל. יחלוצו להם אנשי חיל, לצאת לצבא, כפי תעודות המלחמה, שנה בשנה." There is a sense here that the final war, now manifest as a physical conflict, will rage beyond the confines of the Holy Land, engulfing other nations as well. It will be a war to end all wars, a messianic war, ushering in a new age of universal peace and brotherhood. The terrors are great, but the key to victory in war, as in the whole of life, is rugged determination and a dogged tenacity that doesn't flinch in the face of adversity. We also read, "Va'atem b'nei brito, hitchazku b'mitzraf el, ad yanif yado u'maleh mitzarfav." We should consider another poetic passage from the War Scroll, which is relevant to the comparative study of religious texts. "Uva'anvei ruach uvetamimei derech yitmu kol goyei rish'a, va'ata hakim otan noflim be'uzcha, ורמי קומה תגדל להשפילם, ולכל גיבוריהם אין מציל, ולקליהם אין מנוס, ולנכבדיהם תשיב לבוז, וכל יקום הבליהם יהיו כהן. ואנו, עם קדושך, במעשה אמתך נהללה שמך, ובגבורותיך נרוממה תפארתך." These words appear to be echoed in the New Testament Gospel of Luke, after Mary, Jesus' mother, is told that Israel's Messiah will be born to her. When she receives the prophetic blessing of her cousin Elizabeth, she declares in a famous passage that will come to be known as the Magnificat, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. For the Mighty One has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones and has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty." Luke 1:46-53. It may also be argued that when Jesus is famously quoted as saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," does he not mean those who, in the War Scroll, have staggered from weakness, but who now have been called to mighty deeds? To power over the hard of heart? To putting an end to the wickedness of the nations? It is a far cry from traditional images of a pastoral Jesus uttering statements of Casper milquetoast pacifism. To be poor in spirit is in fact to be strong, dynamic, and mighty in valor. The following promise is also made. "Vayishlach ezer olamim legoral peduto, bigvurat malach ha'adir lemisrat Mikael, be'or olamim, leha'ir besimcha, brit Israel, shalom uvracha, legoral el." And the Kittim are about to receive their portion of judgment from on high. In the final analysis, we can only imagine that the sons of light were endowed with a firm and unshakable confidence that all will be put right one day, a faith in turn providing them a formidable measure of courage for the here and now. All was predestined, and the War Scroll had spoken. The unfolding of events would only be a matter of time.